and Calxiyn here, and today, I don't know why I said your name first this time.
Because I'm more important?
Yeah.
Because I make the bomb theories?
You do,
I
but
make
yeah.
the bitches. Anyways.
But today, this is actually my bomb theory, sort of. It's not exactly a theory, it's more of like
I suppose bomb could be construed in two ways, either it being very good or it being a bomb, as in it's terrible, and we'll find out which one it is very soon.
Anyway, this is more of like an academic...
Oh, Jesus Christ. Is it peer-reviewed? Am I your peer?
No.
RWBY
I'm just, I don't mean like that, but it's less of a theory and more of, I took a fairy tale class this semester, if you guys don't know. And
because you refuse to get an actual education.
I'm taking professional communication studies. This was an elective, in case anybody is wondering the validity of my degree, okay? I can be a PR person, I can do social media.
You're also
I can
never
do something
stressed.
For, like, some celebrity.
You're also never stressed
so
about...
Y'all can leave me alone.
You're never stressed about your school. And I'm like, part of my things, like, do you, like, I don't know, I feel like they make you work more at my university, which is my way of saying...
You want to be a teacher, though. That's like, you know what I mean? Like, that's...
I want, unlike
they're
you...
They're putting you through the rings, you know what I'm saying?
That doesn't want to have an actual job. Anyways, let's continue.
Anyways, so basically my idea is that a lot of people complained last volume about the adults.
Yes.
I guess. Yes, about the adults.
Clearly. Well, because like RWBY and them wanted to do stuff, but then Ozpin and Crow were like, no, we're going to stay in this hotel and the fan base will love it.
Yeah, we're going to stay in this room for an entire volume and it'll all be okay. But yeah, so basically...
What could possibly go wrong?
The idea, I guess, was sort of like, oh, you know, Crow and Ozpin have made the characters sort of lose this agency that they used to have. Like, Team RWBY used to just go out and do things, and they didn't need an adult to go and, like, you know, help them or whatever. And even in Volume 4, even though Crow showed up to save them, right after that he was useless and got poisoned, and the kids still had to make it their own. And a lot of people, like, sort of think why, or parts of why Volume 5 was so bad was because it was sort of like the adults sort of, you know, refusing any sort of character growth, especially from RWBY, because how are you supposed to be a leader and develop as a character if the adults are just telling you what to do? You know what I mean? Which almost happened almost only in RWBY's storyline, compared to, say, Yang and Weiss, who were out by themselves and then had to confront an adult who was Raven, and then Blake, who sort of did things on her own with Sun and Ilya. And now you see that
in this series, in this season, you see RWBY, like, taking, like, not
a lot
taking
more
anybody's
agency,
shit.
you know what I mean?
Fucking shit up. I'm
because
so proud of
they got rid of Ozpin somehow, and now Crow is sort of out of commission for, like, a different reason. Obviously, he's still there, and even though Maria's around, right, she actually isn't trying, and they seem to make a point of this, right, because I think they have recognized their mistakes, and they have recognized that some of what they were doing wasn't the best direction, but Maria makes a comment on this, like, that Crow didn't believe in RWBY enough. Or you didn't have enough faith in her. I don't remember her line exactly, but it's sort of like, you know, you didn't give her enough credit either, right? She kind of says that to Crow. And so it's sort of a callback to the reason why that Crow and sort of the other adults are so controlling is because they don't think the kids are capable. But the kids are definitely sort of in a more capable position sometimes than the adults.
They certainly, I mean, they get shit done. I won't, you know, lie about that.
Yeah, and so... I guess the thing with that is that you have sort of Volume 4 where RWBY is the leader and they're sort of going at it on their own, and then you have Volume 5 where everything is sort of controlled by the adults, and then you have Volume 6 where it's like, okay, the adults are useless or bad or whatever is going on, and so we can't, you know, depend on them. We have to sort of make our own way ourselves. And I think that when RWBY says that, it did remind me a lot of our fairy tales class, just because adulthood and childhood is just a big theme in fairy tales, because usually a lot of characters are sort of going from, you know, being a child to sort of
seeing the big dark world. Like, a
yeah.
lot of it's like meta, like I read
it's like a puberty sort of
I don't
thing.
know if you can tell me this, but a lot of people have told me that Red Riding Hood was about virginity, because the red hood represents like a period.
So I'll get into that just because Little Red Riding Hood is related to RWBY, because RWBY is based off of Little Red Riding Hood.
This is true.
But basically the idea of Little Red Riding Hood is, there's a couple things. So first of all, in one of the French versions of the story, it was a werewolf, so it was a man. And the man gets Little Red Riding Hood to strip down and get into bed with him. And so it's a lot more sexually charged in nature than, like, the normal story that we see now. And so it is sort of a puberty type thing.
Remember that movie Hoodwinked? No, never mind that. It was like they retold fairy tales, but made them like hip, cool, Shrek like. I imagine if they did that, but then they added the rape aspect of it.
And so for Charles Perrault's version of Little Red Riding Hood, he actually makes it so she gets eaten after and then just dies. Like, no huntsman comes to save her, and it's supposed to be like, you know, men with charming tongues will look like normal men, but they're really wolves waiting to devour you. It's basically saying that men are fuckboys and they are going to try to.
Oh my god, you terrified me.
Thank you. And then
what the
that is basically the Little Red Riding Hood story.
That's the most afraid I've ever been at a grilled cheese in my life. And there's been a few incidents.
But yeah. So the sort of idea of that is, yeah, sort of like you're saying, it is sort of a virginity thing, or it's about telling girls to protect themselves against men, or whatever the time period called for. But I think that with most fairy tales is also, first of all, you disobey the adults. That's what every fairy tale character does to get us to a story. So basically what happens in Jack and the Beanstalk, he disobeys his mom, right? He's like, no, Mom, I'm not gonna fucking sell my cow for money. I'm gonna buy some magic beans, right? And that's how the whole story starts, and that's also how they get rewarded in the end because he disobeyed. With Little Red Riding Hood, she goes off the path, and she doesn't really get a reward in a lot of the versions, right? But the huntsman kills the wolf. And so it's like, okay, well, the town doesn't have to worry anymore. Because in one of the versions of Little Red Riding Hood, the huntsman says, I've been tracking you down and I found you at last, right? So it's sort of helpful in a way.
So I'm going to drag you back to RWBY and ask how this is related. Because it's the idea that you said.
Yeah, I'm basically trying to use some examples.
So fairy tales, you're supposed to rebel against the adults.
It's not only sort of the rebelling aspect, but that's obviously in it too. But it's also supposed to be, I think, this fight between childhood and adulthood. You know what I mean? And I think that we see that with Emerald and Mercury, and I think we see that in RWBY and, you know, the cast and all that stuff. Because it's not just, obviously, the rebelling aspect is there, and there's this sort of idea maybe that kids can sort of get things done better, if that makes sense. But there's also sort of, I think, the idea of adults are shitty and irresponsible and bad, right? Which is in a lot of fairy tales, right? And you don't trust, like, stuff like that, right? And so with the case with Emerald and Mercury, it's sort of like Tyrion sort of kicks Mercury down and is like, oh, you want to play with the men now, you know, because you think you're all big and strong, or whatever he says, right? He doesn't say that exactly, but that's basically what he's trying to say. And so it shows you, even though Emerald and Mercury are the bad guys, they are also still children. And I think it is sort of like a rebellion thing, but also like a coming of age sort of thing. Like, I think that when Ozpin says it's gonna take a simple, honest soul, he does mean the soul of somebody who is more innocent, who is sort of a child, and that is RWBY, right? So it's keeping the innocence that the adults have sort of long lost, right? And so maybe Emerald and Mercury still sort of have that because they're not quite ready to play with the big boys, as you may say, right? Like, Emerald wants to fucking leave at this point. Like, she doesn't want to do this anymore without Cinder, right? And you can also make the argument of they both have parental issues, like for Emerald and Mercury. Like, it's like, I'm sorry, Mommy didn't love you, right?
I would argue that killing your father is signs of significant parental issues.
I'm saying
I don't know
for
where
Emerald, she seems to have been abandoned,
but
and then, you know, Mercury says, I'm sorry your mommy didn't love you, but daddy hated me, you know, he says that or whatever. And so it's sort of that other thing. Like, Emerald and Mercury are sort of, even though Hazel and Gretchen are based off of Hansel and Gretel, like, Hazel and Emerald are sort of the kids that have been left in the woods and now have to fend for themselves and aren't quite adults yet and have to sort of take down or kill the witch and all that. But yeah, I just think it's interesting, like, to see the concepts of the adulthood and, you know, the child, because Crow thinks that he knows so much better and that he's doing so much better. And RWBY even says, we know that you want to protect us, we understand, but we do things our way. And that's just like, that's the fairy tale way. Every kid does it their way and they get rewarded. Like, if Jack did as he was told, he wouldn't have gotten him and his family rich, right? It's just that children have a different way of sort of doing things and looking at things and all that sort of stuff. So I just think that the way that they're bringing it up, like, RWBY uses a lot of fairy tale concepts, and this isn't necessarily just a fairy tale thing. Like, Matilda, for example, that's what it's all about, right? You have a little girl and she's sort of rebelling against all the adults who are mean and terrible. But that was what's his name? Ronald Dahl, or?
No, that's Roald Dahl. Roald Dahl.
That's his, that's an
Roald
author.
Dahl.
He also did Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, didn't he?
Yeah,
which is also sort
James
of
and the Giant Peach.
like those are basically modern fairy tales.
Yeah.
I would argue those are like the Peter Pans and like
He was also,
Matilda and
he was
James
also
and
a
Giant
spy
Peach,
in the
right?
Second World War, and his job was to shag like the Nazi officers' wives, and like pick up the info that they dropped afterwards because he was fucking crazy.
But my point is that really it reminds me more of Matilda than maybe the old fairy tales or like sort of those Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, like those sort of more modern ones. But yeah, I just think it's cool that they're sort of going into it and they are establishing this sort of, you know, they can see you, right, Hunter? Like your whole time you're like this.
I'm easily distracted.
I know. Hunter needs my fidget cube that I left in the other room.
My dog found the fidget spinner and we can just like put it on the thing and spin it and she loses her fucking mind. She tries to like bite the fidget spinner and like she tries like to stomp her feet around it. It is amazing.
Anyway.
I want to attach it to a drill so she can't stop it. That's what I'm doing with my spare time. I don't know what you guys are doing.
But yeah, I don't really have anything else particular to say, I guess, but it is really nice that sort of the themes of RWBY do go back to fairy tale themes. Like, do go back to sort of those concepts that it was built off, you know? Because all of them are based off of fairy tales or Greek myths or something. And so it only makes sense to sort of bring in fairy tale concepts that have sort of been around forever. And that really makes RWBY more of a fairy tale, right, than just a fantasy story. Is sort of bringing in concepts that were in older fairy tales. But yeah, I think it's interesting, especially with Emerald and Mercury, just because they're supposed to be the bad guys, but they're still the children. You know what I mean? In some way. And so that's just all sort of very interesting, at least to me. But that's basically it. And I like sort of Crow's little realization at the end. Like, I don't care about what you have to say. Like he says, or RWBY says that to him and all that. Like, that's just such a, I don't know, just a strong sort of fairy tale thing. But yeah. Anyway, I took this class, so.
You might as well, you're not going to get
I only got a B+ in it, and I'm pretty pissed off.
You got a B+ in the fucking fairy tales class?
Yeah, I showed you my grades, remember? All the other ones were straight A's, and that was my 1B. And
I got straight A's, suck my dick.
And I was so
My worst mark was an A-.
Here, you know what though? Okay, this teacher, I'm not saying that she has it out for me specifically. I'm saying that the reason why she did this is because she doesn't want people going around saying that the fairy tale class is easy. And so, you know, I think that she marked this really hard on purpose.
So she made the fairy, because I don't know, that must be hard, like, when you're meeting people, like, oh, you're a professor.
Because she basically said...
Fairy tales?
She basically said, you're not going to get an A in this class. Like, she said that to everybody. So I think that she did it on purpose. But I loved her. And she's good. And she writes young adult novels, so that's like
Are her young adult novels good?
We'll find out. But yeah.
You bought one?
No, but I may. Can
you
imagine we read my professor's book?
Just a spider?
No, I loved her though. I understand where she's coming from because people are gonna say, "Oh, such an easy class," but fairy tales are like anything. They're like Greek myths. It's like if you were to study like a religion or something like that. Like they're parts, they're cultural pieces.
Yes, I think
of history and all that stuff. Yeah,
it's a memory device.
But yeah, that's it. Anyway, I hope that you guys enjoyed. If you guys did, you guys should become patrons over on Patreon. Even though Hunter is just like fidgeting the entire time, but that's just him. So yeah. We'll see you later. Bye.
I ate the casserole, that's why. You guys won't get that reference unless you watch all the videos.
Bye, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching, and if you guys want to support the channel, you guys should be patrons just like our wonderful patrons whose names will come on the screen now. $10 patrons get videos sometimes 2 weeks in advance, sometimes 3 weeks in advance, basically much, much earlier than anyone else. They can also request us to do a video for them, so this could be a reaction, a theory, a discussion, anything like that. Our $5 patrons get a week in advance early access or somewhere within that time frame, so between 2 days early and 7 days early basically, but usually it's 7 days early because I'm good with my scheduling. Anyway, our $1 patrons and all of our patrons above the $1 tier get access to our Discord server, so if you guys want to talk with us, talk with other fans of whatever you're watching right now, you guys can, and I hope that we will see you there. Bye.